Good afternoon. This is Jeff Miller. I'm the founder and director of the Alameda Creek Alliance. I'm going to talk about the last quarter century of Alameda Creek anadromous fish restoration and what the future of Alameda Creek looks like for steelhead trout and salmon. I assume most of you are familiar with the Alameda Creek watershed. This is the largest local tributary to San Francisco Bay at nearly 700 square miles. It drains the southern two-thirds of the East Bay, everything from Mount Diablo in the north to Altamont Pass in the east, and all the streams coming off of Mount Hamilton in the south. The northern arroyos and Alameda Creek proper meet in Sunol. The confluence is near the Sunol Water Temple. The creek then flows down Niles Canyon and then out to the bay in a 12-mile flood control channel. The creek enters the bay just north of Coyote Hills Regional Park, and there are three major dams in the watershed: Del Valle, San Antonio, and Calaveras. The watershed historically supported runs of steelhead trout, Chinook salmon, and this is the only interior Bay Area stream with evidence of coho salmon in the past. Both of our native salmon runs are gone, but there's still resident rainbow trout throughout the upper watershed. The creek also has one of the best assemblages of native fish left in the Bay Area, both warm water and cold water fish. The Alameda Creek Alliance formed in 1997. That's when Central California coast steelhead trout were listed as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act. And our organization was an attempt to help restore a regional population of steelhead trout. And Alameda Creek had been identified as the best restoration potential in the East Bay. Starting in 1999, the Alameda Creek Fisheries Restoration Work Group began to cooperatively address fish passage projects for migratory fish and steelhead restoration. And this work group involves every major stakeholder in the watershed. The work group began by developing information needed for restoration. For example, an early feasibility study. Could steelhead actually be restored to the watershed? The answer was yes. A draft restoration action plan, and very critical genetic analysis of adult steelhead that were showing up in the lower creek to answer the question of were they native fish? Again, the answer was yes. For a couple decades, we did fish rescue of adult steelhead that were blocked from upstream migration at the Bart Weir in the lower creek in the flood control channel. This is 10 miles from the bay. East Bay Park's fisheries staff were a central part of those rescue efforts and subsequent tagging and monitoring of adult steelhead. Rescued and tagged steelhead were released into lower Niles Canyon. But over 20 years of efforts, we only captured and radio tagged 3 dozen fish. This was a very important era for documenting steelhead attempts to return to the watershed, to publicize the need for permanent fish passage solutions, and to collect data on fish migration and potential habitat use. The radio tagging actually clued us into the fact that steelhead would use the Stony Brook Creek tributary in Niles Canyon. But since then, the focus has really shifted to providing permanent fish passage, which is exactly what local agencies and the fisheries work group have been very busy doing in the last 2 decades. It started with dam removals, and we went after the low-hanging fruit, or the easiest structures to remove first. The East Bay Regional Park District led off with the removal of 2 small concrete swim dams from Alameda Creek in Sunol Regional Park. The San Francisco Public Utilities Commission removed 2 obsolete dams from Niles Canyon. And at the time, Sunol Dam was the largest dam to be removed in the Bay Area for fish passage. The Alameda County Water District determined that they could accomplish their water supply capture and recharge without needing their lowest of their 3 rubber dams in the flood control channel. So they removed the rubber dam in 2009 and built a small fish ladder in the remaining concrete sill, which was left for grade control. A lot of other in-stream infrastructure has been removed or modified for fish passage. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory removed this cement road crossing on Arroyo Mocho. This is at the lower end of the gorge, and replaced it with a bridge. Zone 7 has removed a series of small fish passage barriers in the northern arroyos, starting with this cement drop structure on Arroyo de Laguna at Castlewood Golf Course. Zone 7 also removed 2 of these concrete monstrosities from Arroyo Mocho in Livermore. Alameda County provided fish passage at 2 road crossing culverts in Stony Brook Creek along Palomares Road. They replaced the upper culvert with a bridge and added baffles to the lower culvert. The winter after this project was completed, resident rainbow trout immediately moved upstream past both of the project sites. Caltrans recently completed fish passage enhancements into Stony Brook Creek as part of their Highway 84 road projects in Niles Canyon. They replaced this perched box culvert at the lower end of Stony Brook with a free-span bridge and also removed a former roadway sill from Alameda Creek. And now 5 fish ladders have been built in the watershed to provide fish passage. A development project in Livermore that realigned the confluence of Arroyo Mocho and Arroyo Las Positas was facilitated by Zone 7. Although fish have not yet used these ladders, this was significant because it was the first time that California Department of Fish and Game required fish passage as part of the project, and these 2 fish ladders were built. In the upper end of Alameda Creek, the SFPUC recently built a massive fish ladder at the 32-foot high Alameda Diversion Dam, and this could eventually lead to steelhead being able to access the headwaters of main stem Alameda Creek. Alameda County Water District put a significant effort into completing 2 crucial fish ladders past water supply and flood control infrastructure in the flood control channel. And this is the completed fish ladder just that goes past the Upper Rubber Dam, just below Mission Boulevard. And ACWD and Alameda County Flood Control teamed up for the critical fish ladder at the Bartweir and the Middle Rubber Dam, which had blocked anadromous fish migration for 50 years. This major fish ladder was completed in 2021 and started operating last winter. ACWD also installed fish screens in all of their off-stream diversions to protect juvenile fish. The rebuild of Calaveras Dam was quite significant for in-stream flows and fish passage. This seismically challenged dam was rebuilt just downstream on Calaveras Creek and was completed in 2018, restoring the original capacity and elevation of Calaveras Reservoir. The regulatory agencies required the PUC to release summer and fall cold water flows from Calaveras Reservoir to enhance about 5 miles of trout rearing habitat below the dam. Rainbow trout immediately moved into lower Calaveras Creek and have expanded downstream into Alameda Creek. Also, warm water invasive bass and bullfrog predators have been pushed downstream of the cold water flows. This project also required the PUC to bypass a significant amount of the storm flows past the Alameda Diversion Dam, which will greatly improve passage opportunities for steelhead, both upstream and downstream. Plus, I also already mentioned the fish ladder, which was built at the diversion dam. So looking at a scorecard of all the various infrastructure that humans had put into the stream that stymied fish migration, almost all of the former barriers below major dams have now been removed, laddered, modified, or have projects in progress. So back to our map of the watershed, the red circles are completed fish passage projects, and you can see there's quite a few of them. The orange spots are the remaining fish passage and habitat enhancement opportunities. So starting from the mouth of the creek is the South Bay salt ponds restoration, then a fish passage enhancement and sediment transport project in the flood control channel, a small concrete weir in lower Niles Canyon, a PG&E gas pipeline crossing in the Snow Valley, and the upstream most orange dot is the natural boulder cascades at Little Yosemite. So talking about each of those, the restoration of former salt production ponds to tidal marsh and wildlife habitat is proceeding around the South Bay. The next project is Eden Landing Phase 2, which is adjacent to the mouth of Alameda Creek. And this is an opportunity to reconnect Alameda Creek to tidal marshes to provide good feeding grounds and transition habitat for steelhead smolts preparing to go to the bay and ocean. Phase 1 of this project starts next year, and Phase 2 of Eden Landing will connect the Alameda Creek Flood Control Channel and the old Alameda Creek Channel to restored tidal marshes. We'll never regain all of the lost tidal marsh habitat, but this project will provide some approximation of transition habitat for anadromous fish, which need to go from fresh to saltwater and back again. The Alameda County Flood Control District is moving forward with a project to transport sediment out of the flood control channel. It also includes measures to enhance fish passage at half a dozen concrete grade control structures in the channel. It provides a low flow channel for fish out migration, and it'll place in-stream structures for cover for fish and revegetate portions of the channel with native plants. This concrete weir is for the USGS gauging station Lower Niles Canyon, and the creek is in the process of removing its structure itself. The SFPUC has been monitoring this structure, which is starting to fail. We have had radio tag steelhead go over this barrier at medium to higher flows, so it's not necessarily a fish passage barrier at all flows, but regardless, this will likely be gone or breached soon. And just recently, California Trout took the lead on completing a fish passage project at this massive cement apron over PG&E's gas pipeline crossing in the Snow Valley. This is the last major fish passage barrier on main stem Alameda Creek. The cement will be removed and the pipeline lowered. And Cal Trout is working with the SFPUC and a nearby quarry operator to stabilize the creek in this reach and plant native riparian trees. This project will be implemented in 2025. And getting upstream to Little Yosemite, there's been a vigorous debate over whether these natural boulder cascades will be passable to upstream migrating steelhead so that they can get into the headwaters of Alameda Creek. At low flow, there are significant drops among some of the boulders, but at high flow, steelhead passage seems feasible. The SFPUC was moving forward on a project to reconfigure some boulders and add concrete sills to improve fish passage opportunities. However, the recently listed population of foothill yellow-legged frogs in Little Yosemite halted that project. This is one of the only large populations of this frog in the East Bay. So this issue will have to be revisited when steelhead arrive upstream at this location. Little Yosemite is a critical refuge for yellow-legged frogs and for trout. Most of you know it is heavily impacted by recreation, with people and dogs in the small pools during spring when fish and frogs are spawning and eggs can be crushed or silted in. Also in the summer when the fish are the most stressed. We've asked East Bay Parks to implement a docent program at Little Yosemite to interact with and educate the public, similar to what Marin Municipal Water District has had at Carson Falls and Marin County for the past 18 years. Also asked to add signage and symbolic fencing at the cascades to protect sensitive habitat. So where are fish going to go in the watershed? If we look at a map showing the various reaches of the watershed, here's where anadromous fish coming upstream from the bay will be able to reach suitable spawning and rearing habitat. The Stony Brook Creek tributary in Niles Canyon, the first cold water refugia, really, where we already have resident rainbow trout, and this is a perennial stream. Niles Canyon is kind of an unknown. It has warm water temperatures during summer and fall, and it's unclear if steelhead could actually rear there. Chinook salmon certainly could. Sinbad Creek, the tributary in Sunol, which was historically perennial and had spawning steelhead and salmon, but now dries up in the summer. Steelhead could spawn in Sinbad, but their offspring would have to move downstream into Niles Canyon to rear. Lower Arroyo de Laguna, which should be good spawning and rearing habitat for Chinook. And then we get into Alameda Creek proper in the upper Snow Valley. There's good spawning and rearing habitat starting in the vicinity of the Snow Water Treatment Plant and the Welch Creek confluence, all the way up into and above Snow Regional Park. And this reach is now enhanced by cold water flow releases from Calaveras Reservoir in the summer and fall. I already discussed trout moving up into lower Calaveras Creek below the dam. And then there's upper Alameda Creek, which is probably the best remaining habitat, is the best remaining habitat below the major dams if fish can get through Little Yosemite. And if they can do that, they can get to all the way to the headwaters of Alameda Creek, which is 40 miles upstream of the bay, and then into a tributary way up there called Valpe Creek. Now that San Francisco PUC has the fish ladder operating on the Alameda Diversion Dam. So if you build it, they will come. The fish ladders recently completed in Lower Creek opened up the watershed to anadromous fish for the first time in half a century. Then we had that series of atmospheric river storms last fall and winter, which provided huge runoff. Almost immediately after the new Bart Weir fish ladder was operable, actually it was still being tested and calibrated, we had a run of Chinook salmon show up and actually come up the fish ladder, come through the fish ladder. These are hatchery strays, but there are self-sustaining Chinook runs that have built up in the South Bay streams, and we could do the same in Alameda Creek. Pacific lamprey also use the new ladder. The Pacific lamprey are anadromous, similar to steelhead. They are able to actually sucker their way over some dams and barriers, such as the Bart Weir, but need some help with fish passage in some places. And they are known to spawn in Sunol Regional Park. And then we actually got steelhead in the first year of operations. Several adult steelhead were documented in the new ladder this spring and summer. And then there was also a tagged smolt that came from the upper watershed, came downstream and pinged a receiver in the fish ladder. So this was a smolt that was on its way out to the bay to transition to a steelhead. I'd like to mention two significant projects that are going to greatly benefit the Alameda Creek restoration. One is the Sunol Watershed Center that is near completion that San Francisco PUC is building near the Sunol Water Temple. And we anticipate this is going to be a hub for watershed education, for meetings, for trainings, and for conducting monitoring and assembling volunteers. And the other is the Niles Canyon Trail, which East Bay Parks is intimately involved in, of course. This will not only be a regionally important trail linkage, but that'll allow hikers, bikers, and equestrians to safely travel through Niles Canyon. But it also will bring increased management and attention to Niles Canyon. We've got huge issues in the canyon with trash, pollution, poaching, and trespassing, and there's a large unhoused population living in the canyon. Having East Bay Parks be involved in managing the trail will bring much needed trash cleanup, public education awareness, and patrolling and enforcement. I also want to briefly mention some upcoming restoration issues that we're going to be focusing on in the coming years. We need to work with Zone 7 Water Agency to complete some more fish passage and habitat restoration projects in the northern watershed, and to see if there are opportunities to create more natural stream flows or enhance flows in Niles Canyon. In that vein, San Antonio Reservoir, owned by the SFPUC, currently does not have any minimum flow releases for native fish, so that's another place to look potentially for cold water flows. And we're also looking to introduce state legislation to protect SFPUC watershed lands in the upper watershed. This is actually most of the upper watershed, to protect imperiled species and sensitive species from fishing and hunting. We've got significant natural resources up there and imperiled species, including landlocked steelhead trout in both of the SFPUC reservoirs. And we have started a citizen monitoring, community monitoring program. We've held several trainings with Cal Trout and the East Bay Parks with more than 75 of our volunteers. Our stream keepers adopt stream reaches to monitor for spawning fish, and they also clean up trash and help deter poaching. We're covering areas that are not monitored by any of the water agencies, so that would be Niles Canyon, Stony Brook and Sinbad Creek tributaries, and lower Arroyo de la Laguna. And in summation, it's an exciting time for Alameda Creek restoration. We look forward to continuing to work with East Bay Park fisheries staff on monitoring spawning salmon and steelhead populations. Sunol Regional Park is going to be a very important stream reach for steelhead and lamprey, and maybe Chinook as well. We know that East Bay Parks is looking at restoration opportunities in Sinbad Creek, which flows out of Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park into Sunol. And we're partnering with park staff and docents on education and outreach to park visitors about the fish, and training volunteers for stream monitoring. Thank you very much.